Hello, everyone. It is my delight today to speak with Dr. Fiona Costa about her ministry among older people. Her lifelong interest in music, together with a calling to a ministry with older people, has led to a range of different initiatives and interests. And I thought it would be great for us to hear about some of those today. Fiona, thanks ever so much for being on here with me today and to have this chat with me. You are involved with older people's ministry from a number of different angles, Fi. Can you tell us more about that? What is it you're involved with, and how did you get involved?
Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you so much for asking me to do this. And as you said, I do spend a lot of my life involved with various projects for older people. My background is in music, and so that might explain why so much of what I'm going to talk about involves music. And most people enjoy music, and it's just such a lovely way of bringing people together. And I believe actually that it's one of the most wonderful gifts that God has given us. What would we be without music in our services, for example, in our church, or in so many different aspects of our life? So in a church context, I organize events for older people, and again, they are usually concerts.
Mhm.
And then the rest of the time, I'm involved in various research projects. At the moment, I'm involved with a colleague, and we're looking to see how we can use music to help people with dementia communicate better. That's obviously a huge challenge of our time. So there are rising numbers of people, I expect you've seen in the papers recently, of people getting dementia. And if we can enable their lives to be a little bit better, I expect you know that the last stages of dementia, communication becomes very, very difficult. It becomes more difficult to understand what people are saying to them, and it becomes more difficult to communicate. And we're trying to find ways of using music to help a little bit in that. And I'm also working on a project looking at the fear of old age. A lot of us are really afraid of old age. And I suppose I'm wanting to answer the question, is there anything that we can do to mitigate those fears, particularly in a church context?
Mm. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to hopefully planning some online events with you in the future
Mm.
as well to hear more about some of your work. But I thought today it would be really interesting for church champions to hear more about your tea concerts that you do in a church setting. What gave you the idea, and how did you go about making the first tea concert happen?
I have to go back several years. About over 15 years ago, I found in church that I was increasingly drawn to spending time with older people.
Mhm.
I didn't actually know any older people, which was, so I suppose that was quite an odd thing to find myself feeling and doing. But there was a weekly group for older people. They were from their mid-70s into their late 90s. Um, and there was this weekly group, and I joined them. They were so welcoming. I was in my late 40s at the time. And I found it to be a complete eye-opener. Through them, I was with them for about 3 years, and through them, I began to learn some of the issues associated with getting older, the challenges, the needs. And one of the things I noticed was that they had so little in their diaries. It was as if their social lives had completely shrunk. And they had so little that was going on in their lives that was fun. They didn't have much to look forward to. So I suppose they were lonely. They would never have admitted it, but I think they were. And that was the principal catalyst for doing something. I didn't at the time have an idea for doing concerts. I just wanted to do something to make these people feel included in my life and in other people's lives of different ages. So what I did was I invited all the older people I knew, and that was only about 20. And I invited them to tea, and I invited a cellist friend of mine to come and play some music with me and give them a little concert. So that's what happened. It was incredibly simple. They all came. And I think what blew me away was their response. They just were so touched to be invited and to have something quite special. I mean, it was very, very simple, but there was something special about it.
Mm.
And that response made me think, well, I can't just leave it at this one time. I've got to do something else. So the church very kindly let me sort of start and to try out whether a series of concerts would work. So that was in 2009, and it did work. Because I'm in the sort of music world, I had lots of people that I could ask to come and play for us. And we did it every 6 weeks. So that was 2 a term. And people came, and they came in their hundreds, actually. It was extraordinary. And I suppose you might say, well, what was the point? I think, well, the catalyst, as I said, was the loneliness that I'd seen amongst older people. And I think that it certainly addressed that. Obviously, 6 times a year, it's not going to do that much, but it gave them something to look forward to. It gave them something to talk about afterwards. And the actual events were times when they could connect with each other, they could make friends. It was it became a special event in their lives. But that was until COVID. COVID came, and obviously everything had to come to an end. And during COVID, I then moved house, and I also moved churches. So we came out of COVID, life started again, and I started to think, now what? Can I do something similar? What should it be? And this time there was I suppose, a different catalyst. I had become increasingly aware that we segregate our society by age. I don't know if you've noticed that. Increasingly, we live in different areas, we socialize differently. I came across some research which told me that in 1991, there was a 15% chance of a child living near someone over the age of 65. Now, wow. 30 years later, that's only 5%.
Gosh.
If children don't grow up seeing older people in their communities, they won't know how to connect with them. They won't know what to talk to them about. And I think older people sort of somehow become other, almost like a different species. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not just children who don't know what to talk to older people about. It's everyone. It's all of us. I'm saying us as if I'm not older. I'm not quite sure where I am on the spectrum. It's like, it depends on how you interpret old. Anyway, I kept on seeing this, and I started to think of ways in which we could bring different generations together. And I quickly realized that there was an obvious answer: the church. Where else is everyone, regardless of background or age, welcomed and accepted? Or certainly they should be. So that was my next thought, really, that instead of organizing something just for older people, nice though that is, and important though that is, I'd like to try and bring the generations together in some way. So that's what we started about, I don't know, 8 months ago, something like that. I go to a church in Hammersmith, so it's an urban church, and we've started doing these monthly, we call them cafe concerts, for want of a better term, and we do it at the same time as the Mums and Toddlers group, and we invite everyone to come, and that includes people, the residents from our local care home, which is very close to us, and it includes everybody in between. So the aim is to get people of all ages together in one place. And I suppose that is the goal, to get people in the room, to have a place where they're loved, they're welcomed, and they can feel some sense of community, whatever age they are. Loneliness isn't just something for older people, as we know. It can affect everybody. So like before, we serve tea and coffee, we give them simple cakes, and like before, we have music. But in this case, it's quite different. It's very much more informal. And the aim really is to make it as interactive as possible. So we're after interaction and intergenerational. I think I've got the words wrong, but you know what I mean. That's the sort of vision for it. We have a special time with the children. We do special songs for them. And it's wonderful to see us all, not just the children, singing nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
And nobody minds because it's for the children, but
Mm.
actually especially for the people from the care home, that is very special for them. They know the words. It brings back memories of different times for them,
Yeah.
and it's something that they can do, which is so important.
Mm.
So there were these two catalysts, loneliness in both cases,
Mm.
but there was my sense that that if we could try and bring generations together, then everybody would be blessed.
Mm. Yeah.
Does that give you a sort of a little bit of a?
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. I can't wait to come and have
Well,
a
I
look
can't
and
wait.
join
I
you.
can't wait for you to come and see what we do,
Yeah.
because obviously it's quite difficult to describe.
Yes. No, I'd love to see.
Perhaps one thing I could add. Obviously,
Mm.
there is. I mean, it's not just. I mean, the vision is as big as one as one
Mm.
can make it. Really, obviously, we would love people to come into the life of the church.
Mm.
Some people come who are very much part of the church community, and then others come who are from beyond the church
Mm.
community. We have flyers, and I put them in the local GP surgery, and the people have come from there. There's Maggie's Cancer Centre. There's another local care home.
Mm.
The library.
Mm.
We don't know who we'll get coming through our doors, and
No.
obviously want to draw them into the life of the church, and that's something that we pray about all the time. And perhaps I can tell you about what we're going to do next week for a
Yeah, please do.
Christmas one. So we're going to have lots of carols. We're going to have carols which everybody can join in with, and we're going to have children from the local primary school come and do a couple of their carols.
Mm.
And we're going to have some friends of mine who are professional singers come and do some sort of like a performance of carols,
Mm.
all of which are familiar and well known to the people who
Mm.
come. So it's going to be fun.
Yes.
And at the end, we're going to our associate vicar is going to give a little talk about the Christmas message.
Mm.
And so I think that feeds into our desire really that people have a chance to come and
Yes.
not only have fun together, but
Mm.
perhaps can dip their toes into the life of the church.
Mm.
And one hopes that having come through the doors of the church, they might feel, well, perhaps if it's like that and I like it, I might come to something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. That sounds so good. Tell me, Fee, how long are these afternoons? Because you're covering a lot of ground in those sessions.
Well,
What time do
actually,
they
the
start
latest
and
ones,
finish?
well, the latest one morning, which is a change.
Okay.
That was really influenced by the fact, but when the mums and toddlers group was,
Yes.
they're an hour and a half,
Oh,
not too long.
no.
In the past, I found that you don't want to go too much over 45 minutes
No.
of input,
Mm.
particularly for older people, because I think they just get to a stage when they've had enough.
Yes.
And can't concentrate on more, and it just seems to be the right kind of time length.
Mm.
So usually we have say 45 minutes of music, and then we have time when people can have tea and coffee and chat,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is equally important.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Do you have a story that you could share about how an older person found faith through this ministry, or perhaps how they grew closer to being involved with the church or growing closer to Jesus?
I do, amazingly, and one is very recent, which is incredible.
Mm.
And I wouldn't say it is just. I mean, it's certainly not just the cafe concerts, but the
No.
cafe concerts played a part.
Mm.
So it was actually at the concert before last, so October, and a woman and her son came in, and apparently they'd been into the church the day before, and they had wanted to know what was going on in the church, and whoever it was they spoke to gave them a list of all the things that they could come to and be a part of.
Mm.
So anyway, the cafe concert was the next day, and they decided to come, and they sat through that, and I hope that they felt welcomed and part of the event. But afterwards, they then went up to the vicar's wife and really wanted to know about faith and how they could
Wow.
be find faith. And they prayed then and there.
Wow.
And they were baptized 2 weeks ago. Well, sorry,
Praise God.
the mother was baptized, not the son.
Yeah.
Um,
Praise God. That's amazing.
it is amazing, and
Yeah.
it certainly it wasn't, of course, just the cafe
No.
concert, but I think the cafe concert gave was just an event that fitted the bill at the time for
Yeah.
them, and it was a place where it went in a praying atmosphere.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really
I
good.
could give you
Good
I
to
could
hear.
give you another one, unless if you would like.
Yeah. Go for
It
it.
was in the previous series of concerts. There was a woman who started coming to the church who'd recently had a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and she was in her 70s. And she had moved away from her faith. And I think having the diagnosis made her sort of look at everything all over again. And so she started coming to church, and obviously was very distressed. And then she also started coming to the concerts. And I think the combination of the two was a very special thing for her. She made new friends. She found the concerts to be a time when, yeah, she could leave the stresses of the day. And they played their part in making her last few months very different from what it would have been she'd been if she hadn't come back into the church.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
lovely.
think that was rather special. When we had the previous concerts, I did a little study and I got some people to come and interview people just to sort of see what they said, really.
Mm,
Um, and I think two of them express um, how I suppose they meet loneliness,
mm,
um, and how they I take away a certain amount of anxiety. I'll just read you the quotes because
mm,
I think they're quite powerful. So one person said, "I lost my husband 4 years ago. He had 12 years of Parkinson's. It's just nice to not be on my own."
mm,
And then another one said, "What I like about the concerts is that it takes your mind away from every other thing, every stress or everything that you have been wondering about." Um, so they just, in a sense, I often think, yes, that these events are drops in the ocean,
mm,
but equally, we never really quite know what's going on in
mm,
people's lives. Um, and sometimes it's a very powerful thing, and it's a combination
mm.
of prayer,
Yeah,
church, music, community,
yeah.
and probably other things as well. But
And that's a lifeline to people, especially those who are lonely or struggling with some aspect of their lives. And actually, even for those who aren't struggling or aren't lonely, how great to
yeah,
have extra joy, infused into your day or into your diary, as it were.
yeah, exactly. But I'm fully aware there's so much more that we could be doing, and I would love actually to in time as the things grow to have things in each week, not
Yes.
necessarily being
Yes.
highly organized,
Mm,
but having a place where people can just come and be with each other
mm.
um, and find a sense of community in that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. That's
Yeah.
for the future,
That's a
perhaps.
program to be built. But even
Exactly.
with these cafe concerts, doing something well again and again takes quite a team, doesn't it, Fi? What have
Yeah.
you discovered? What have you learned along the way about building and motivating teams, which presumably a lot of the time are made up of people who, in part, are already in later life themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's the most important part, I think, because obviously no one can do it on their own. And in both events, I've had the most amazing team. And really, I knew that was going to be important right from the start. So I just asked people, anybody who I could think of who I thought might be interested in doing it. Um, and I wasn't looking for any particular skills. I really just wanted people with hearts that were open to
Mm,
being with older people and praying for older people.
mm,
Um, and they are, I mean, and I think in both teams that I've had, I think I've just been so amazed by how well, it's like a sort of small example of the body of Christ. Everybody brings something different to the table. Some people are fantastic at catering and organizing. Some people are brilliant at chatting. Some people are brilliant at welcoming. Everybody's got a different gift, and you don't always know what those gifts are when you ask people to come and be involved.
Mm.
And everyone has got something important to bring, and even if it's only praying, well, that's actually badly expressed.
Yeah.
Most importantly, if it's
Yeah.
praying, then I want them on the team.
Yeah.
Um, so everybody will do something different. Some people like to bring flowers,
Mm.
just different things.
Yeah. Some people like to be in the background doing the washing up and the shopping or
Exactly,
something. There's a role for
exactly.
everyone, isn't there?
There's a role for everyone.
Mm.
So how to keep us together? It's a challenge because I'm very aware that people are busy and one can't be too demanding of their time. But I think it's really important to keep on sharing the vision of what we're trying to do, because
Mm.
it's easy to lose sight of it if you're
Mm.
just turning up to wash up or to whatever every
Yeah.
time. So it's important to keep sharing the vision, and it's
Mm.
really important to keep praying together.
Mm.
And to share the answers to prayer,
Yeah.
and to do anything that encourages people to say, yeah, this
Mm.
is a lovely thing. I really want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
And I am not good at a lot of those things which I've mentioned. I am not
Mm.
good at catering. I'm very happy to turn my hand to anything, but that's
Mm.
not what I'm particularly good at.
Yeah.
And so I hope that's I think everybody can see that I'm not good at it. So I think it's good for them to see what I'm not good at,
Yes.
as well. And so everybody brings something different to the
Mm.
table.
That's some really good advice. Thank you, Fee. And finally, what encouragement would you give to a church champion who's making plans to launch a new ministry for older people in the season ahead, maybe in 2024?
Well, I'd be thrilled to hear of it if that does happen. Uh, there's so much endless scope. There's so many different things that one can do, and obviously I've talked quite a lot about music, but that's because it's my background, and I love it, and I've just seen just people just enjoy it so much.
Mm.
So obviously it's something that I love to include, but it doesn't have to be that. Um, I have a friend who has a group where everyone brings some hobby. They bring knitting or embroidery or some craft that they enjoy doing, and they have a wonderful time chatting. Um, um, I used actually, for a brief period, I had a group which didn't actually have any music in it. We did jigsaws. We had and I had an artist friend who used to come and encourage us to paint. Um, we did a little bit of dancing. We did various things, and I think there is just so much scope
Mm.
for trying different things out. And I suppose one of the most important thing is, depending what kind of church you go to, who's in it, what the resources are, to have a look at that, to look at the community that you're in, see if there are any specific needs in that community.
Mm.
That there comes a fit. So I would, if I was starting again, repeat some of the process that I've done. I've just spent
Yeah.
quite a long time thinking and praying, talking
Mm.
to people within the church about what might be possible. Obviously, it's really important to talk to the church leadership about
Mm.
what they feel about it, how
Mm.
keen they are to have
Mm.
something of this nature,
Yeah.
um, and what resources that they feel that the church can offer to help facilitate that. All those
Mm.
things, I think, go in the mix.
Yeah.
And but primarily, of course, I think it's praying together with someone to say,
Mm.
look, what could we do?
Mm.
How could we help? And I do think trying to get people of different generations together. I mean, it
Mm.
may not have to be toddlers. That is
Yeah.
quite an interesting aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I came to realize that having just a group of older people together is sort of almost repeating what we're doing as a society. And we're
Mm,
sort of bundling them into a group on their own again
mm,
and of course there's purpose in that. And of
mm,
course it's wonderful to introduce them to, but I just think if we could at least bring a few other people of different
mm.
ages into the mix, I think that is just such a wonderful way that the church can reflect a different way of doing things.
Yeah. And I think just from my experience when I've started a couple of things, sometimes when you're sort of striking out on a new venture, it's okay not to sign up and say we're going to do this every month for the next year. I think it's okay to say let's try one of
Mm.
these events or one of these sessions, or let's try three and then assess. And I think that takes the pressure off and it allows people to just sort of check, you know, which areas of that thing is God at work in, and actually how can we change it and make it as good as possible. So I think taking that pressure off ourselves sometimes can be a help too.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Actually, I did actually that we did actually start with that sort of mindset that we would just
Mm,
see how it went,
yeah,
and particularly I kept on saying to the church leadership, look, you know, I think this seems to be a good idea, but if it's not, let's close it down. There's no point doing something that if it doesn't work.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, if no one comes, that's
yeah,
that's a good sign that it's a
yeah.
bad idea. But I think just keep revisiting,
Mm,
keep keep everyone in the loop of what you're doing.
mm,
Saying, well, you know, this has gone well, or perhaps this hasn't gone so well. Can you help?
yeah.
What do you think? Very consultative.
Mm. And as you said earlier, to keep sharing the vision and sharing like what is it we're here for? This is what we got out of bed for this morning. You know, to share the love of God with people, really, whether it's in actual word or whether it's in deed. Just reminding
Mm,
people of the bigger picture all the time.
mm,
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with me today, Fee. It's been really
mm.
interesting to have this conversation. You've said a lot of things I hadn't heard before, and I'm sure our
Oh.
church champions and others will be thrilled and hopefully encouraged to hear what can be done, what can be achieved, and to have a go and pray into what God might be calling them to do among older people in the season ahead. So thanks ever so much, Fee, and thank you all for watching today.